This podcast is based around an article that I've posted on the Corporeal Fantasy website, the blog, called To Be or Not to Be. That is the question. Anyway, I'm going to read from it and put some kind of comments in as I'm reading it. The essence of the whole thing is about the one-sided nature of most of our lives. Most of us are craving for clinging to existence and in total denial about non-existence. And there are some subtle points here which hopefully will come out during the reading of this and the comments. So, just a cursory look at the dominant spiritual, self-help, philosophical and religious doctrines suggests a greed for existence and an abhorrence of non-existence. Most meditation practices are geared towards greater clarity and intensity of consciousness and are in essence just another form of materialism. If I make some particular effort, I can get more of the thing I am striving to gain. So I'll make a comment at this point. Almost everybody who meditates does it for a reason, and that is the wrong reason to do it. If you meditate for a reason, then, well, you might experience some pleasant states now and then, but basically it's not going to go anywhere. In the book Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shunryu Suzuki, he states anybody who sits down with an intention when they meditate has already fucked the whole thing up. It's not going to go anywhere. Those are not his words, by the way. They're my words, but that's basically what he's saying. And it's just another form of our materialism, our grasping minds. If I do this for 2 hours, I will have twice as much spiritual payback as if I do it for 1 hour. It's all bullshit. But to have people sit and meditate with no aim in view is a hard thing, because most of us are pleasure-seeking creatures, and we want pleasure from our meditation. And if there's no pleasure to be got, we ain't going to do it. So, I'll just read that again. Most meditation practices are geared toward greater clarity and intensity of consciousness, are in essence just another form of materialism. If I make some particular effort, I can get more of the thing I am striving to gain. Self-help books tend to emphasize a happier life. And through various affirmations, a person can convince themselves they feel differently from how they really feel. This sort of thing is very dangerous. Neurosis is a given, and worse as the difference between reality and imagination widens. Now, it just so happens that I've been on a Reddit, whatever they call them, a thread on Reddit about Stoicism, and some guy's asking, how can I become motivated? The world is sort of crazy, and this is something Spinoza points out. It is a total error to believe that you can think something and make it happen that is actually running counter to your emotions. Your emotions are the real things. So if something makes you feel totally unmotivated, in other words, it brings you pain rather than pleasure, then there are a number of ways to address that. I'm getting sidetracked, but one is just sit in the pain while you're doing it. Easier said than done, but do it. Try and find out what the pain is. Anyway, I'm not going to get sidetracked on that. But the worst thing you can do is to get up in the morning, so you've got some crappy, horrible job. Say, today I am going to be successful in my job. I am going to enjoy it. Meanwhile, the poor horse, to use Gurdjieff's terminology, the horse within you that is your emotions, is just taking a damn good beating from the coachmaster or the guy who's driving the coach, which is your intellect. Your intellect saying, I don't care how you feel, you're going to do it anyway, and you're going to enjoy it. Yeah, some people say these things are useful to them, but eventually they'll kick back. The horse will kick back at some point, the horse representing the emotions. So, without labouring the point, we can summarize various approaches to life in the following way. Spiritual work. And I've no idea what the word spiritual means. It sort of came on the scene to some extent with the New Age. But I think most people understand that it means things like meditation and chakras and love and light and all this bullshit that came out with the New Age. Anyway, spiritual work. Hopes for more consciousness, a happier life, and possibly immortality. Many people who are involved in spiritual work are shit scared of death, and they want to find something, some book, some practice, something or other that is going to make them feel that actually, yes, they do live on through eternity in some kind of way. So, there we have immediately some bias towards existence and this inability to even contemplate non-existence. And then we come to self-help, hopes for a more comfortable life, greater affluence, and all the life-affirming things. Clawing again into the life thing, give me more of this thing called life because I'm shit scared of death. And I'm just going to keep doing the life thing until I drop off the end. And no matter how much pain it gives me. Then we come to philosophies, with some notable exceptions. Obviously people like Schopenhauer and Swaran. Most theories attempt to convince us that God exists, that there is order in the universe, and that rationalism helps us deal more efficiently with life. Very few philosophies actually teach or talk about what might be non-existence. Schopenhauer does to some extent. There are some other philosophers as well, I'm not going to go into them, typically German ones, that deal with this to some extent. And of course, Buddhism, if you consider Buddhism to be a philosophy, says that all the suffering of man comes from the fact that he wants to exist. So what happens to these people who are clawing onto life for everything they're worth? They suffer, and they suffer greatly. They don't realize that they need to go the other way. Anyway, we'll get on to that in a moment. And then we come to religions, which are bringers of comfort. And actually, you should never knock anybody's religious belief, because life is hard. And if someone has a religious belief that brings them comfort, then that is just such a blessing, and it shouldn't be knocked. I just hate these arrogant bastards like Dawkins and Lawrence Krauss. Lawrence Krauss, he's a physicist. He hasn't done anything particularly wonderful. He's a clever guy, but he just rails against people who have some religious faith. Someone just wants to punch him in the face and tell him to shut the fuck up. Anyway, religions bring us a comfort in the sense that uncertainties are addressed, so you have the answer for everything. Suffering is given a purpose. You suffer so that you are cleansed, so you can go into heaven or something like that. And promises of life after the death of the body. Again, people clinging on to life. So spiritual work, self-help, philosophies, religions, they're all doing the same thing. They're trying to give us a way to cling on to life, to existence. So it seems we are all desperate to affirm our significance and acquire more of this thing called existence at just about any price. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your viewpoint, there is another side to the reality coin, and it is called non-existence. Our existence and life bias is relatively easy to understand. Since we are a product of nature, we inherit the survival instinct, the desire to persist in our existence. It drives pretty much everything, and so it should not be so surprising to find it driving so-called spiritual, religious and philosophical matters. In reality, there is nothing particularly elevated about activities which are primarily concerned with a longer and more pleasurable life. Dedicating oneself to making money will do this, and will probably be more efficient at delivering the goods than spiritual work, religion, whatever. When we come to consider non-existence, it all becomes a bit more difficult. There have been almost no thinkers who have enlightened us on this topic. It's not exactly going to be #1 bestseller in the New York Times, is it? Anyway, when we come to consider non-existence, it all becomes more difficult. There have been almost no thinkers who have enlightened us on this topic. Buddhism is perhaps the most useful, with its statement that all our misery comes from the wish to exist. Fortunately, most of us experience some level of non-existence every night in deep, dreamless sleep. And this does highlight the point that non-existence is synonymous with unconsciousness. And in fact, if you think about it, existence and consciousness are pretty much the same thing. U.G. Krishnamurti famously said that our bodies don't know they're alive, they have no consciousness. When they die, they don't know that they've died. While they're alive, they don't know they're alive. Where there's no consciousness, obviously there's no notion of life or death or whatever. So if someone is unconscious, basically they don't exist. That's what existence means. It means to be conscious. And the whole consciousness thing is a play between subject and object. Subject being the thing that experiences, and object being the thing that is experienced. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all of that. I've done it in another podcast. So, to balance the scales and to offset our frantic obsession with existence, it is worth recognizing that periods of non-existence, unconsciousness, are also precious. This is a duality, and it seems likely that behind this there is neither existence nor non-existence. However, a life that is just pushed along by the will to life and invests wholly in existence will be inherently neurotic, avoiding the inconvenient fact that existence and consciousness seem to come to an end at some point in the future. Various exercises can help restore the balance between consciousness and unconsciousness, existence and non-existence. A simple breathing meditation that focuses on the out-breath, and particularly the pause at the end of the out-breath, is useful. Why is this useful? Because the in-breath feeds the body. It brings oxygen into the body and therefore serves life. We're not interested in that in this exercise. What we're interested in is the exhalation, which is basically the last breath you will ever make, the last movement your lungs will ever make. So the out-breath is given the attention. The in-breath, try to ignore it. Sense your feet while you're doing the in-breath. On the out-breath, try and put all your attention on the out-breath, and particularly the pause at the end of the out-breath. I should add, do not try and modify your breathing in any way. This is just an observation. The worst thing you can possibly do is try and modify your breathing, unless you have some very, very skilled practitioner who knows how to do it. And most of the people who teach it don't know how to do it. So don't listen to the woman down at the local town hall who's doing yoga classes and teaching you breathing exercises. Don't do it, because you can mess your breathing up. So that's a breathing exercise. The other one is what in yoga is called the corpse or the death pose, which is basically you just lay on the floor on your back. your legs are separated a little bit out at a bit of an angle, and your arms out from your side at a bit of an angle, your palms upwards, and you just try and let yourself sink into the ground. Just relax and let the body effectively just submit to gravity totally. So the death or corpse pose in yoga is also useful if, while letting the body relax, we meditate upon our extinction. This is something that Gurdjieff recommends. It's something that the Dalai Lama does every day, although no doubt what he does is rather more sophisticated than this. But even so, it gives a sense of balance. We're not just these rabid dogs chasing after life all the time. There is a part of us that is acknowledging that there's another part to life, which is called death. And these dualities, we see these dualities because we're limited creatures. The reality is almost certainly the case that existence and non-existence, funny term to use, but in essence they don't exist like that. There will be something behind it. What that is, I don't know. But non-existence and existence, consciousness, unconsciousness, they're dualities. There's always something behind a duality. So that's a look at whether you should be or not be. And the answer is you should be both. And people should give some time each day, even if it's only 10 or 15 minutes, to the non-existence side of their life, to those exercises that I mentioned at the end, and to thinking about it. It doesn't have to make you depressed, although I have to admit, if you have spent 30, 40, 50 years just avoiding any idea that actually one day you're going to drop off the end of the conveyor belt, then it may be difficult to entertain these things. And if it causes you too much misery and all the rest of it, don't do it. Anyway, hope that's useful.